Hope with Sugar Sidewalk, and I have been working on this shoe on and off today. So I thought I have a little bit of time, so I'm going to work on it. And while I work on it, I thought I'd make a video so you can see me working on it, and I'll answer a couple of questions that I've been getting. So let's see. This is, first of all, it's a new Freed Pointe shoe. It is so new and so stiff that it's all I can do to not put it on the floor and stomp my heel as hard as I can on this box to break it in, but I'm not going to do that. I'll keep going. But anyway, it's a Freed, and I'm using Swarovski, which is the only brand of crystals that I use. They're the Xerius Rose cut, and these are silk. That's the color. I'm doing a solid color on this shoe, and I think when this pair is done, what it's going to look like is a really light, a really pale rose gold, and it's going to match the satin of this shoe really, really well. I think it's going to look really pretty. So anyway, on to the questions and some gluing. So probably the most common question that I get, well, I mean, besides why, which, I mean, hello, that's why, is how long does it take? How long does it take to do a shoe, to cover an entire shoe? And the answer is it depends. It does depend, but most of the time for a solid color it's about 4 hours. I'm pretty fast, and I know that sounds like a lot, but when you're putting on each crystal at a time and dotting the glue each spot at a time, it just takes that long. And I really want to make sure they're perfect and in their little spots where they go. So yeah, so it takes about 4 hours to do one solid color shoe. And then if I'm doing an ombre shoe, or sometimes I call it a dip shoe, where it's dark color here and then it kind of ombres up into a different color, that is typically 6.5 hours to do that. So it takes quite a bit of time. And then the next question I get, sorry, I'm wiping off all my glue here. I'm getting towards the end of this syringe, so it's starting to not be as happy. And that sound is super important, by the way. That tells me I'm getting the glue on there the right way. Yeah, so I get the question, the second most common question is, how many crystals does it take to cover a shoe? And the answer is about 1,600. I use size 16 Swarovski flatback. They're not hot fix, they're just the foil back because I use glue. Oh look, I picked up 2. That is super lucky when that happens. Then you gotta like get them into their little spot there. So yeah, about 1,600, the average size Pointe shoe. And what's interesting, well, at least it is to me, the largest size of package for these crystals is what's called this factory pack, and there's 1,440. So I buy a lot of these factory packs. And you know, Swarovski are expensive. I guess, I mean, for a rhinestone, they're definitely considered to be one of the more expensive ones, if not the most. And to me, I know I already put glue here, but I am talking, and so I'm not going as fast as I normally would. To me, there's really no comparison, and I've looked at a lot of crystals, even crystals that are a competitor of Swarovski, but they might be even the same price, just to see, you know, maybe there is a better better, more sparkly, more uniform, better quality. And the truth is, they're just, in my opinion, there isn't. These are the best you can get. They have the most shimmer, they have the most sparkle, they're extremely uniform, which is really important. I'll talk about how or why I put them on this way versus other ways. And the uniformity is really important. You don't want crystals that are all over the place, you know, where there's a variance of quite a bit on these tiny little crystals. So I do get asked sometimes too, why do you put it on in rows? Why do you do rows versus maybe just filling it in? And the reason that I do rows is that if you look at a finished shoe, and when you've done the rows correctly and they're all perfectly lined up, it has a really nice line. And the point, there's a lot of reasons for the pointe shoe, but one of the things that I love the most about ballet is the lines that the dancer's body make. And I think that it's appropriate that the lines on these shoes, as I make them, are really beautiful and as perfect as possible. I mean, they're never going to be 100% perfect, although that's my goal when I'm making them. But they're as close as I can get. I think that when you're doing something, creating something where there's a lot of repetitive activity, you know, where you're doing the same thing over and over and over again for a long period of time, there can be a tendency to rush towards the end, and I think that'll affect what the end product looks like. And so I never really think about the end. I think about each and every crystal, each and every dot of glue as its own unique thing. So there is no beginning or end for me. There's just each one should go on exactly the same. You shouldn't be able to tell where I started or stopped. And I think if you do that with that intention when you're making the shoe, you'll be able to see that at the end. And I get a lot of comments about that, about how straight they all are and how perfect the lines are, which is my little ode to the dancers and the hard work and the persistence and blood, sweat, and tears that goes into even getting into your first pair of pointe shoes, much less sometimes it's somebody's last pair of pointe shoes or a special performance. They're all really special. They all have a really unique story, and I really have a lot of respect for the dancers and for those stories. So I try and have that be front of mind when I'm making these shoes. And that's it. I'm going to trade out now to a full syringe of glue because this one's done. And I do fill these myself. They don't come filled with glue. They have to get filled. And you can only use them once, but there you go. Now I'm back in business with glue. So I'm always checking to make sure that they look perfect. There's no gaps. Everything looks great. This looks really nice. I think this is going to be really pretty. I'm excited for it to be done so I can show you. Yeah, really nice.